Witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie na 61. Krakowskim Festiwalu Filmowym. Ja nazywam się Kaja Klimek, a to jest spotkanie z reżyserami, reżyserkami, autorami, twórcami, bohaterami właściwie również filmów z 7. bloku projekcyjnego w ramach konkursu filmów krótkometrażowych. Ja przedstawię już moich gości po angielsku, bo myślę, że tak będzie łatwiej dla nas wszystkich się komunikować, więc od tej pory zmieniamy język na powszechnie zrozumiały. Okay, so welcome at the 61st Krakow Film Festival. My name is Kaja Klimek and I'm really happy that I'm going to have a chance to talk to the filmmakers and also like the one of the protagonists of the films that we have in the 7th short film competition program. And with me tonight are, and we're gonna do it like in school, okay? So you're just gonna show yourself like this. After a year of Zooming, you know the drill for sure. So with me are Loris Giuseppe Nese, the director of Bad Mood. Hello.
Hi everyone.
Where is the hand? The hand. The hand is important. Hi, nice to have you here with us. Marieke Elzerman, the director of Come Here.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you again. And Amar Habib and Joe Buffalo connected with the short documentary called Joe Buffalo. Sorry for this. Hi guys, nice to have you here also. And hello. Alex Wolf Lewis and Caitlin Schvalier connected with the film Snowy. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, hello. So international crew, international group of filmmakers, and we have some questions to ask. As I said before, we're gonna do like a first round of questions, and then we're gonna develop on that. By any chance, if you have some questions towards each other because something needs to be developed or commented on, feel free to also do that. Yeah, let's start in this order as the program goes. So that would be Loris as the first filmmaker for the introductory Q&A part. I wanted to ask you about, because it's always interesting for me, the personal connection with the story that you tell. We have a character, the character grows up, we are growing up with her, but where are you in this story? If we can find you there, where would you be actually?
Yeah, it's very simple. The story is based on my family story. My grandmother and was a maid, and also my mother was after her. So I grew up in the houses where they worked, and I saw what they did, and so I wanted to tell the story through the eyes of the childhood in a way, and in a sort of mental trip that starts with the childhood of my mother and ends with mine.
Mm-hmm. And what it gives you when you tell a story through the eyes of the child? That's a really interesting aspect of your film, I think.
Yeah, I am very interested to this particular moment, and I also with the look of the film, I wanted to create a sort of old-fashioned style. So because I wanted to play with the idea of old cartoon, with the idea of 80s cartoon. So for this reason, I used also the video station and an ironical music that sounds in a way like a music of an old cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you for now. I'm going to proceed and then come back to develop on other things connected with your film. So Marieke, hi. First of all, I wanted to tell you that when I started to watch your film, I was like, I'm watching a documentary. And then I discovered that I'm not watching a documentary, that it's a kind of mixture of fiction and non-fiction film, which is always super interesting, kind of field between those two things that are so different from each other. So I wanted to ask you about that part, like the world that you invite us to seems very specific. It's like a specific place. There are specific people out there. So am I like correct to have this kind of mix up in my mind when I watch your film and feel that, oh, it's so real, it's so authentic that it couldn't be invented in a way?
No, it's really true. It's we shot everything in a real shelter, and with parts like partly non-actors. So yeah, the guy who is the trainer of the dogs, he works there already for 30 years in the shelter. And I was also really looking for, in the writing process, yeah, to have to go to a place where I could also observe, and not that everything comes from my mind, but also that it's yeah, that it is inspired by real things that I see. Like, for example, how they feed the dogs with the feet, like that's something I observed, and I thought, oh, that's nice to take into a story. Yeah, and so yeah, and the question list, like all these little details that I thought was so, yeah, so interesting and so specific of that place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the idea just to go there and film there and to make a story about and tell the story about this, does it come from your personal experience, or what's the source and the grain, I would say, of it?
Yeah, the source was really that I wanted to make a story about, yeah, a friendship, and that was based on the personal, like the fictional, like the most fictional part is between the two friends. It's not really something it's not autobiographical or something, but it's just parts of it that I think I wanted to make a film about meeting someone new and like these different lifestyles that they have. And so it was a really long writing process. So I think, yeah, something, I mean, it was really influenced by also the people I met in the shelter. Like, there was a woman that I met there, and part of the main character is based on her a little bit. And in part, yeah, so it's really mixed of reality and fiction, actually.
But like, I'm not gonna let you go yet, because come here, Maria, actually, because like why actually this world? That's what I want to know.
Oh, why?
Yeah.
Good question. Well, I mean, the place of the dog shelter, that was something that was very in the beginning. I don't know why, it was really intuitive, the place of coming and going, and of course where there's people that, yeah, dump their dogs there, and a breaking of a connection, which is very, of course, very visible there. So it was really intuitional, I guess, yeah, and then to find that place where I was there on while I was doing yeah, like it was when I visited a lot of shelters, and when I came there, it was really the relation of these people, the people who work there, that I thought, well, this is so unique, and I want to make a film with them. So I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah. What can I say? Of course, it's the right answer. Like like whatever you're gonna say is gonna be the right answer. I just want to know what you think and feel about the story that you showed us, because it was really touching for me. I thought that maybe you worked there yourself, and that came later. That's why I'm so inquisitive, I guess.
Wait, that I was there myself, or that I worked there myself?
That you worked there for a while.
Yeah. No, I did work there a little bit while I was doing the research, but no, it was not based on a personal. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to let you go for a bit. And I will go to Vancouver, one of my favorite places on earth, actually. Congratulations on the spectacular place that you live in, with the ocean and the mountains and actually the lake and the forest and basically everything. So
thank you. Thank you. Portland's nice too.
Sorry?
Portland's really nice too. I haven't been there yet, but it's
Yeah.
similar kind of vibe from what I hear.
Yeah, but I'm asking about the place because of course we can. I was like super excited when I saw it's like East Van, and I'm like, wow, amazing! They are from there, so it means that you probably met there. And like, tell us a bit about the background of how this film came about, because it's so personal for you, Joe. But at the same time, it feels that it comes from like a relationship that you guys have. I mean, so just. Let us in this world that created the film that we could see. Who wants to start? Maybe, I don't
I'll
know.
start.
Joe.
Joe.
All right. Yeah. So Amar and I had met in 2005 in Montreal. Actually, I lived there from '99 to 2009, and in 2005 he had come to town with some friends, and back then I kind of just like resonated with the English speakers. So if you were English and you were from out of town, I was going to show you around the city. You know what I mean? I was kind of like just tour guide, and so yeah, Amar had. Yeah, so like years had gone by and I moved to Montreal, or sorry, I moved from the East Coast back to Vancouver in 2010. And in 2019, Amar had, he had seen that was given a pro model for this skateboard company here in Canada called Colonialism Skateboards. And he had seen that I was in the news that I was given this board, and it was a big deal, you know, for me, and also the nature of the board itself. And so he had approached me on social media and was like, hey, you know, like, and at the time I was like in the beginning stages of just like becoming sober and like just allowing my guard to be down, you know, and like trusting people, and just kind of like had already done some, like it had already been discovered for acting and had already done some films, but I didn't trust anybody. I just thought that everybody was out to take from me, or you know what I mean? Everybody had like a hidden agenda, and it was just like, you know, kind of just, I was all so new to me. So when he took me out for breakfast and he's just like, yeah, he's like, congrats on everything and this and that. And he's like, has anyone ever told your story? And I was like, what do you mean? You know, and he's like, well, I'm a documentarian, and you know, check out my work and whatever. And so I was like, you think? You know, like I fully was just like, there's no way. Really? I'm like, someone wants to like take me on this like level of like film, you know? Because like again, I didn't trust, you know, I was just like, yeah, but what's in it for you? You know what I mean? I always thought that somebody like had some hidden agenda, and that I was, yeah, someone who was trying to benefit off of me, or you know what I mean? I had all these like old like stigmas built up in these old narratives that I needed to like break in order to like fully invest my trust into a project like this. And so just taking those steps, and that's like part of healing with my journey, and where I'm going in the direction that I'm in, is allowing trust to just do its thing, you know what I mean? And I never had that before. So it's like a blessing, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I'm like,
yeah, I can
it's
imagine.
just a lot. It's a lot. And
It's a lot.
so I'm glad that I, invested the time and the trust into, and also it was like a friendship that kind of like rekindled, that I was just like, okay, well, that part, I just, you know what I mean? There wasn't like, you know, it kind of just made it feel so much more organic, and it wasn't like a director who was like over your shoulder watching everything, you know, where you're kind of like, oh, I'm forced to like produce, you know, or I'm forced this, like, when it feels like a job, it's just like, okay, this sucks, you know? So where this is just like straight up like so organic, it was just like, yeah, what are you feeling? So you have some spots in mind? You know what I mean? So it was a lot of just working together in order to just make it as comfortable as possible, you know, as far as the skateboarding went, you know. So it was definitely like, yeah, like being like acquainted before kind of like allowed that level of trust to do its thing, where it was just like, yeah, it's quite the experience.
Yeah, sounds like it. So, Amar, tell me, finding the right way to tell Joe's story, because we have a lot of poetic images actually in your film. Like there's nature, there is a city, there's movement and fire and everything basically. There's like a mix of a lot of factors, I would say. So tell us a bit about the process that you developed to tell it in the right way.
Sure. So as like Joe mentioned, it kind of started with us just like kind of rekindling our friendship and that was like the end of summer 2019. And so it kind of really just started like just hanging out a lot and just like talking about his life and kind of getting to know him a little bit better and just we talked about what the film might look like, and I would just kind of take notes and then read them back to him, and then we would just kind of it was just like a refinement process from there until we decided what the narrative kind of would really be, and then once kind of we had that, and we just recorded a bunch of interviews of me like talking to him like in a casual way a few times, and then and from there I built out like this audio bed essentially for what the film would be, and his voice is really powerful and commanding, and so we wanted that to be really just like front and center, and then the kind of the visuals were really inspired from that. Like we had that really laid out like well ahead of before we ever started shooting, and then from there we had the luxury to do that, and that we're both living here, he's nearby, we were just hanging out all the time. He would come over and we would record a little bit, and that was a bit of a process, and I guess I knew that I wanted to well, I think we both did, we both wanted to push it in a narrative direction. Joe is actually an emerging actor. He's been in several feature films that have gone to TIFF and have done very well, and so we it just felt we just wanted to lean into that as well, and so and of course the skateboarding, so we wanted to make something that was kind of more of a hybrid film between narrative and documentary and skate video, and kind of also we saw this as an opportunity to make a film about a residential school survivor. I guess I'm not like most people in Canada are familiar with that history, just because we've had a truth and reconciliation process here that began in 2015. But so there've been a number of documentaries about it that were kind of more academic for like the National Film Board of Canada, but we wanted to do something that had a more contemporary approach on it that would appeal to a different demographic, younger people that would want to watch Joe in a skate film or something. So we just kind of leaned into that. Joe in a sense of like a narrative film and a skate film and a documentary. And as far as like where we shot and like the aesthetics of it, that was kind of more of a back and forth process that the cinematographer Liam Mitchell and I had. So Liam's also a longtime skateboarder and skate filmer and a very talented cinematographer in his own right. And Joe actually knows Liam he from like, I don't know, like 26 years or something, like longer than I have. So that was like invaluable to have him on the project. And how it was developed, it was kind of intuitive in the sense that like we knew we wanted to cover, for example, let's say like Joe told me about the process of when he really started his healing journey in a really like in a really distinct like way of when he was would write everything down that had happened to him. He would write things down and he would just process it and go through just kind of feel all the feelings that were there. And so we just had the idea to like show that as like a launch pad to him going into this kind of internal processing of trauma. And obviously that would be going back to residential school. And so we found a decommissioned residential school just outside of Vancouver that they allowed us to go in there and shoot, and just go in there with a Steadicam and shoot a bunch of stuff like of imagery of just like what you see what you see in the film essentially, but also having Joe go back into that space and like and be in that space, moving through it. So that's just like kind of one example that was inspired by what Joe's story, what he told me himself, and kind of a back and forth between that the cinematographer and I had, to make something that was, like kind of visually resonant.
I'm going to come back to you with more questions in a bit.
Sure.
But we have more questions to ask to Alex and Caitlin.
Yes,
I'm
of course.
really happy to have you here. I need to share my turtle story. I used to have one like that for around 15 years. And it was like, I really didn't know what to do to make him happy. And your film comes now, many years after this. And I'm like, that should be for everybody who, who goes to an animal shop, to zoo shop, and is like, should I have one like that? Maybe they should first watch this and then maybe decide once again what they really want to do. The name of my tortoise was Emil, but actually it's a male name, but it was a girl. So that was also like a misinterpretation on my side what I'm actually handling. So that was me just sharing the story. I just felt like I need to tell you this. But your film, actually it is about how to make a little animal happy. But tell us a bit about where this need to do that came from, because this is like a really particular story. And I have more questions, but I wanted to start with that.
Yeah, so everybody you see in the film is actually my family. So that's my uncle, my aunt, my cousins, and I guess Snowy is a long cousin as well. So I would go there every year for Thanksgiving or holidays, and I would see the turtle in the basement. And some part of me just couldn't understand what motivates a little turtle to hold on to the will to live when you live in a basement for 20 years. Like, what drives a creature to want to survive? And I think it's something we all share. And I wanted to understand more about this. I thought there was maybe a movie in here. I told the idea to Caitlin, who has more of a science background, journalism background, more of a cinematography background. And so it was
I love the challenge of trying to kind of illuminate the inner world of this turtle. It's maybe like one of the least, most expressionless house pets one can find.
That's true.
And in trying to do that, we chatted with an animal psychic, and the movie I feel like didn't really start until I got in touch with this woman named Dr. Anna Wilkinson, who runs something called the Cold-Blooded Cognition Lab in England. And from our deck in Maine, I gave her a call, and she was super welcoming and was like, yeah, come interview me. And then we kind of got on a plane to England to chat with this lady about turtles, and that's sort of how it started.
We didn't expect the turtle to take us halfway around the world, but I guess both Caitlin and I have maybe too much empathy for small creatures, and that's also where the drive to make this film came.
Yeah, and a very sad history of killing small house pets, so I think it was a bit of a redemption story on our part too.
Yeah. Oh, so you had a story like that in your lives before?
Oh yeah, I mean, fish getting sucked in by like a malfunctioning fish filter. We've had a frog suffocate in a bag, lots of hamster deaths, the usual. Also,
small animals are usually children's first experience with death as well. So there's a lot to kind of unpack in a small little shell.
Yeah, that brings me back to my childhood, actually.
I'm so sorry. Actually, everybody that watches Snowy, maybe 9 out of 10 times somebody tells us an animal story in return.
Yeah.
So we have lots of stories now. For the next 10 years, we can make documentaries about small animals.
That could be really interesting alternative for David Attenborough, like with another story of what really is happening with the animals in the human world. But of course, we are telling a story which is like half happy and half sad, but finding the balance to really, strike a chord and at the same time not make everybody miserable when they connect with inner selves that were basically not really careful about their animals and their pets. How to find this balance? Because your film is actually pretty funny. and making a funny documentary, it's a challenge. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think we kind of wanted to go back and forth between the family's perspective and Snowy's perspective and have them kind of the friction between them. We found a lot of humor in that. I mean, there's nothing funny about this movie from Snowy's perspective, but of course from the human perspective, it's hilarious.
And also we were surprised just to find out, I always knew how funny my family was, but they have such a good sense of humor, and we were able, I think because we knew them so well and we filmed for a lot of days and we would just sleep at my uncle's house. We could just let them be themselves and get used to the camera, and there was no pressure. In fact, he's like, come more, you know, come hang out, come stay with me.
Yeah, and kind of translating, every time we would film them, they would be like, we don't understand, why are you filming this? This is ridiculous.
This seems like the most...
No one's gonna watch this. So I think a little bit of also trying to translate that ridiculousness of the premise of the film also on screen was like kind of a good base for humor.
Spending 2 years on a small turtle film, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, thank you, because we have some long answers in here and some shorter answers, but we're going to try to do a second round now. So I'm coming back to Loris, and this is going to be a really specific question, because you started to talk about the form of the film, that it's going to be like this animation from the 80s. And why do you think that nostalgia is the language that's going to work in such a story? Can you tell us a bit about that? And to add one thing, there are not only animated sequences in your film, but there are also people towards the very end, and there is this document. Can you tell us a bit about this mixture that you put into the form of your film?
Yes, I love tell story with something of my life. So I start to write a project from my autobiographical story, and so I during the process I wrote an animation short movie without documentary insert. But during the editing with Chiara Marotta, producer and editor of the short film, we put the documentary materials, starting from my family footage, and the people that you can see at the end of the short film are my grandmother and my mother, and so the child at the end is me, and we wanted to put the real life in the animated short film, in the fictional short film, and in particular there is an important moment in which there are a message on paper that wild but true I found during the editing. I found this paper in my letterbox, and when I saw, I decided to put in film.
Okay, and you mentioned the editing process. I wanted to ask you about that, because this film has really particular rhythm, like the clock goes, the coffee goes, there's this movement. Can you tell us a bit about that, because it's really striking for me?
Yes, because I wanted to tell a particular job, a job that in which the actions, the sound, the images are always the same. And so I wanted to create a sort of loop in storytelling, a loop with animations. And I wanted to tell the instability of this particular job. And so I wanted to tell what can happen when the routine when the routine stops, and the loop I think that the loop is useful to create a preparation of the moment of the crash, of the final crash of that.
Yeah, and it really works. It works like that because it
Thank
builds
you.
this tension, and then you have slight release at the very end. And I wanted to, that's going to be my last question. I wanted to ask you about the bad mood, and this whole concept of districts full of bad mood. Like,
Yes.
I guess everybody who hears that, just imagine districts full of bad mood. I wanted to ask you about that because it sounds really strong. What's the metaphor behind it?
Yes, I think it's simple. I wanted to to tell my city, my district, and in in that place, as in many places, the people are full of bad mood in a way. In these particular jobs, in this particular situation of suburbs of a city, and so I just want to tell my bad mood in some moments of my life.
Yeah, I guess we all feel like that sometimes, that it comes and goes, like you said in your film. Thank you for your answers. Let's go to Marieke for a moment. There is this famous saying that every time I talk with directors that have a chance to work with kids or animals, they say that there's nothing worse than having animals and kids on set. So I wanted to ask you if it's true from your experience. Were the dogs that you worked with, because they are also characters in your film, unhuman characters, let's call them that way, protagonists even. How that worked for you? Because like just beginning as the filmmaker and having this challenge to be able to work with them must have been some kind of an experience. Just tell us a bit about that.
Yes, it was really scary because I didn't really train with the protagonist Clara, the dog. I didn't really meet her before. I think just once before the shooting, but she is the dog of the protagonist of Koen, like the guy who also plays in the film, and they have a really beautiful connection. So in the end, it was actually really easy because she listened so well to him. So around him, like he was always there. He helped us a lot with the training of the dogs, and the other dog, the Labrador, the brown dog that's the main character is petting, was also a dog of one of the very close people that we worked with, who worked in the shelter. So I guess because the dogs felt so comfortable with their owners there, it made it very easy. So
yeah, it feels like they are really well behaved on some level. We hear that they are not, but we never see that. What about the people? Were they well behaved to work with?
Yes, very much. Yes, of course. In the beginning, I was a little bit intimidated by Koen because he has a strong presence, but it was so beautiful to get to know him better and to find the trust with him also. And yes, it was a very nice experience to work with them.
And you know, I'm not sure if it can be also your observation, but during the COVID pandemic, so many people adopted dogs and cats, and I guess everybody knows that now, that you know, like living on your own or even with the family, you need some unhuman presence also, or just a chance to get out and go to have a walk with the dog when you cannot go anywhere else. So what do you think is going to happen now? You think that people are going to be more open to those more difficult animals, or they just going to, well, do you have hope for better
I hope
of those animals, really?
I hope so. It's just that I think what Koen teaches, like the course that he also teaches in real life, is really based for people who have problems with dogs that are aggressive or that. And I think the most beautiful thing that I learned from that was that a lot of people, when a dog is aggressive, it's a natural reaction also to become aggressive. I see it every time I'm on the street. I see a dog like barking, and then I see like the like pulling the thing, and like I think that's normal, that generates. But I think that is a really beautiful how that people change their views after that course of Poon. How to actually see it like not as aggression, but also as fear, and like to more have a posture of, oh, my dog is aggressive, so I have to provide safety, not become also aggressive. So I think that's, I don't know if that's people. Yeah, I hope so. I
Yeah,
hope this thing becomes more. Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna keep my fingers crossed for
Yeah.
that, and that's a beautiful lesson that can come from your film. That you need to really try to understand what's going on out there in those animals' heads and hearts, basically. Thank you very much for your answer. Joe and Amar, let's talk a bit about skateboarding, because actually I'm like a beginner. I have my cruiser and I skate in Warsaw a bit, maybe not as like never as professional as what Joe does and his friends. And so I wanted to ask you about like, first of all, Amar, do you skate yourself, and do you have this connection also with how the skateboarding works for Joe? And a question for Joe is like, if you can tell us a bit more about what it actually gives you and what it can give, because now you are a mentor, what it can give to other people, especially the young ones. Tell us a bit about that part of the film.
So yeah, sorry if it wasn't clear earlier. So Joe and I met in Montreal through skateboarding.
So you do skate. I wasn't sure about that. So
yeah. So I don't skate anymore, but but yeah, I did from the age like 10 to 20. I skated like every day of my life, and that's actually how I got into filmmaking. Was you know, growing up, I grew up overseas in like in the Middle East, and I got into skating at a young age, and I started making skate videos, and that led me into filmmaking. And so yeah, so I guess, does that answer your question, or is there you want me to follow?
Yeah, I want to develop on that then. What it gives you as a filmmaker, the experience of being a skate like for so many years. I'm just really curious about that, because we have the bunch of filmmakers that started as skateboarding filmmakers, like Spike Jonze or Bing Liu with his beautiful Minding the Gap film that you probably heard of or even seen. So
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you personally, what it gives you as a filmmaker that you used to do that for so many years.
Well, it definitely taught me I can get pretty scrappy if I need to. I guess I learned I guess like we're the kind of the culture of skateboarding in a way is like really DIY, kind of learning how to do something and looking at obstacles and finding you know, creative ways of overcoming them, I guess, you know. So I think that's what it really brought to me. And you know, besides obviously learning to shoot and edit and stuff when I was a teenager, I think it's really just more like a mindset of you know, taking something as a challenge and treating it as like a creative opportunity.
Thank you. Joe, should I repeat what I wanted you to tell us about?
No, I could answer.
Thank you.
Pretty much all of my years of skating, I wasn't always on a straight trajectory. So, you know, like I was battling childhood trauma, which came out, my coping mechanisms were, plus I had an addictive personality. So alcohol went from, marijuana to like to cocaine to crack to, you know what I mean? To eventually I was addicted to heroin. And so I had my skateboard under my arm, doing everything I was doing, but I wasn't looking at it as a way of trying to further, you know what I mean? It was just there. I treated it like a boomerang. I would throw it away, and then years, you know, 6 months later would come back to me and I'd be like, oh yeah, you know? So I never ever looked at it like I was like, yeah, this is what I wanted. You know what I mean? I was given opportunity where people were like, yeah, if you do this, I can give you this and you can have a board mod. And I was like, sounds like a bunch of work. And I just, no, I'm like, you know what I mean? It just seemed like too much at the time and I didn't feel like I deserved it. So it wasn't just like on my mind. I wasn't like, well, I wasn't always some professional skateboarder, you know what I mean? It took having to rock bottom on the downtown east side of Vancouver and, you know what I mean? Cheating death. It took having to have nowhere to run to, no one to relate to. When I was that age, when I was as young as the people that I work with, I wish I had someone that had gone through the ringer already and had already lived these lives experiences so I could go to them and say, look, I have questions. Like, you know what I mean? I wasn't built that way. The way I was built and these institutions taught me was that I got this, you know? Why would I run? Why would I ask questions? You know, I got this, you know, why? You know, no, I'll ask questions. So for me, it took having to go through the system of trial and error, you know what I mean? Oh, the reason why you don't do this is because this will happen. And I just learned the hard way, you know what I mean? And so time is what I won't get back. And so in return, I would like to just be able to say, look, the youth, you know, like you could go that route. You know, I've been there. I don't suggest, you know what I mean? Red flag, don't go that route. And so being able to help give guidance and also teaching the youth that, you know, you don't have to fit into a box of becoming that hockey player that your dad so wanted for you to become, or, you know what I mean? Your parents want you to go down this path that you don't want to necessarily go down. And skateboarding, I found, was just some of the people that came from the most broken homes, the most dysfunctional families, turned out to be some of the best skateboarders I've ever witnessed. You know what I mean? And me coming from a broken home, I'm like, awesome. This is like a commodity I could like roll with. And not only that, but you have to earn your stripes. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, yeah, the older guys are like, oh, this kid rips, you know, like, let's give him a chance. You know, it was like, yo, let's give that kid an extra hard time and let's add years to his life on top of, you know what I mean? So it definitely skateboarding for me when I was growing up, you had to like earn your respect if you wanted to roll with the older guys, you know? I didn't have access to a vehicle, but if I so dearly wanted to go to towns outside of, you know, outside of my reserve. So I had to earn that place in that back seat of that car for the older guys. And that took years of getting slapped around and getting treated harshly till finally I was advancing them and I was getting better than these old guys. So they were like, all right, you earned your seat. We're going to Red Deer or we're going to Calgary or wherever we're going, you know? So to me, it was like, wow, that took years of tormenting, but now I'm accepted, you know what I mean? So these days it's a heck of a lot different than it was growing up. And so I just want to show that to the kids that if I can inspire them to like, you know, because I put it down for so long and I came back to it, you know what I mean? Well, not very many people are able to physically be able to do that. And so that's just how rich our blood is, you know what I mean? And how like just how strong our bloodline is, that if, you know, if I could go right from bottom, I had absolutely nothing in my pocket, not even a home, not even a cell, anything, and I could rebuild my life back to where I am right now and I'm able to inspire, then you know, my
you
job
just
is
have to
done.
do it in a way, like that's your duty. And of
Well,
course, like,
I just do it. I do it and I don't even know I'm doing it. It's just built in me, you know? That's how that's how I'm built, is to just like how, you know, my mother, my grandmother, like so on and so forth, my grandparents, everybody. That's what we've been doing, you know, since since I can remember. Now I'm sober and now I'm able to just make decisions based solely on my heart, you know, and what I feel. It's not about, oh, we're gonna, you know, it's just straight up, my heart does all the answering for me, you know, does all the talking.
Thank you. That is so strong. Like seriously, like the story that you tell is really encouraging to just like stick to your guns and maybe choose the skateboard when there is a choice to choose something else. Thank you.
Well, just choose whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you, whatever
Skateboard
makes
me
you want
happy,
it.
really.
It's like all my life I've been told, don't do that, you know, there's, you gotta fit inside, you know, and it's, wow, okay. Well, that makes me want to do the opposite and multiply it, you know what I mean? Being told not to do something, you're like, oh, I'm gonna do it anyways, and I'm gonna make it this big instead of this big, you know? And that's just how our way of thinking was as skateboarders, you know? And so it just, you know, you eventually you just one up yourself, and it's a constant, you know, you can always do better. You're your own worst critic. So yeah, instead of this next try, I'm gonna go double the effort, and I'm gonna push it even further and twice as high. I may fall, I may fall and not get up, but you know, at least I tried, you know.
No, thank you. Alex and Caitlin, when you started to make your film, were you thinking about the betterment, that it's gonna really make the life of Snowy better towards the very end? Did you hope that the uncle's gonna change his ways and the Snowy is gonna go upstairs and all of that? Was there this need and this kind of aim that you had?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we were scheming from the very beginning as to how to turn Snowy's life around. I think in the beginning we were going to try to force Larry to give the turtle up to a sanctuary, and if that fell through, we were actually going to make flyers and post them around the neighborhood and say, like, somebody please take this turtle. So yeah, I think for a while we had
Wait. So yeah, sorry, there's one truck passing by.
Yeah, it's okay.
But I think from the beginning we knew something big had to happen in the film, and so we really pushed my uncle as far as we could. And the transformation you see, and the love he feels, and the appreciation he has, not just for Snowy, but for everything else in his life that became routine, was very real. And he even said, you know, he's like, "Wow, Snowy," you know, he believed that. So we were very, very happy. I think Snowy would say thank you too.
Yeah. So how are they now? Like, because some time passed since you
Yeah,
made the
it's been
film.
1 year. Snowy's doing great. He loves his new
thriving.
house.
Yeah, he one of his biggest upgrades was getting a sun lamp, because I mean he was kind of in this like constant state of hibernation in the basement because he was always cold and not experiencing any sun. So he's really come out and started to enjoy life.
He sent us a nice thank you.
In the turtle language.
Yeah, exactly. Just a lot of paw prints, like Morse code.
Okay, yeah, it gives you hope that the cinema can really change the reality, and that's what I always think about. I'm sorry, the cat is on the keyboard. I'm sorry for this, because it's dangerous. He's gonna click on something and we're gonna go offline or something. I just don't want that towards the very end. But yeah, for the betterment of people and turtle, I would say the film was made, and that brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you for finding time for us. In the remote Krakow in Poland. I hope that one day we're going to have a chance to meet in the very exactly the same group as we are now in the same room. That would be really crazy and awesome. Maybe that's going to happen. Who knows? We never know what's going to happen. So enjoy your evening or your afternoon or your morning. That depends where you are. And I hope that you're going to have a chance to watch some films during 61st Krakow Film Festival to see other stories that are in the program. And yeah, thank you very much. I'm really glad that I had a chance to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having us.
Dziękuję bardzo, drodzy Państwo. Zapraszam na kolejne projekcje na Krakowskim Festiwalu Filmowym i do zobaczenia.